Welcome to Speaking Cinema, series movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you from the Paradise Theater in Hollywood, California, America. Listen to us Jibber Jabber every single Monday, Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook, Speaking Cinema. That's our name. I am your host, the Masked Phantom, Mr. Jibber Jabber. Here with me today, as always, my roadie and senior guitar tech, Kevin.
How y'all doing? You got some frayed strings here. It's guitar tech.
Who are we? We are Speaking Cinema. We talk about a movie, then we watch it, then we talk about it having had seen it. For a contextual conversation about the only thing fit to podcast, movies. The most we can hope for is an ongoing great discussion.
And we try. We try hard.
He's been maimed and framed, beaten, robbed, and mutilated, but they still can't keep him from the woman he loves. This time on the Jibber Jabber, he sold his soul for rock and roll, 1974's Phantom of the Paradise. Written and directed by Brian De Palma, starring William Finley, Paul Williams, and Jessica Harper, released by 20th Century Fox. If you're not familiar, a disfigured composer sells his soul for the woman he loves so that she will perform his music. However, an evil record tycoon betrays him and steals his music to open his rock palace, the Paradise.
Some rock and roll intrigue.
It's
that story.
It's a little bit of a weird connective plot. It's like how does this one equal that? Like, he sells his soul, but then she can perform his music.
Yeah.
Is the devil involved? We'll find out.
About to find out.
So, bit of background on this movie. Edgar Wright, director of Shaun of the Dead and almost director of Ant-Man, considers this to be one of his favorite movies.
Wow.
He says it's a very atypical Brian De Palma film. This movie can only objectively be described as a horror, rock opera / 70s music satire, in contrast to all of De Palma's movies, which are Hitchcockian psychological thrillers. So
This is definitely a departure. No question about it.
It's also crazy that 1 year later, Fox put out Rocky Horror Picture Show in 1975. So, someone working there had a fetish for rock and roll, leather, and transgender glam singers.
And also, Real Bad Cold.
Real Bad Cold. As of this recording, you can find this movie on digital HD on all major platforms, your iTunes, your
Amazon.
Prime. Also, that's what it's called. When you buy it digitally, that's digital HD.
Good to know.
Blu-ray copies exist. VHS copies
hard
exist.
To find.
Yeah,
I just checked Netflix DVD queue. It is not available.
Interesting. It is available on Amazon for a full retail price of $18.75.
Ooh.
Get that Prime shipping, everybody.
Get it.
Watch it for the podcast. Kev, have you heard of this movie? What do you know about it? What are your thoughts? Have you seen it? Why'd you see it?
Heard of it. Seen the bonkers trailer for it, which is all over the place.
I was going to bring that up later, but the trailers for this movie are truly, and they're trailers from the 70s, are truly terrible.
They are very 70s.
In the worst. Like, people are like, I think there's a more romanticization of, like, trailers from the 70s not giving away too much of the movie or something. From the better. This is not that. There's shots clearly from all over the movie. I think they give away the ending in one of the trailers. I would say avoid the trailers, and the trailers are clearly for people who do not understand what they're trying to sell you.
Yep. Seen the trailer. Have not seen the movie, though.
Interesting.
Never seen it before.
I have also not seen the movie. And, I think if you listen to our podcast on the regular, that was a very sparse background section, right? Usually we go into a lot more detail about the production and things. And not just because I'm lazy, but the reason why I didn't want to do that is because I first heard of this movie through Edgar Wright on the Trailers from Hell YouTube channel. And if you're not familiar with Trailers from Hell, they show in the background, they show a trailer for, some sort of, cult kind of a movie. And then a famous director will introduce the movie, introduce the trailer, introduce the movie, and then give his thoughts on the trailer and on the movie generally. And that's how I first heard about this movie. It's at the height of my Edgar Wright fandom, a fandom that continues to this day, but the zenith with me just looking at YouTube trying to find anything this guy had said, right? And I came across this. And he put over the filmmaking, he put over the songs, and again, the trailer makes the songs look like shit. But and then he said it was better than Rocky Horror. He said this is a movie like Rocky Horror, but better in every way. And really, that's good enough for me. And I think it speaks to the like movie fandom, right? It's like when you're a nerd like we are, you go in on movies that you don't know a lot about, but the recommendation from someone that you want to be like, you idolize, you respect, puts you through, right? It's a way a lot of us nerds see things.
And somebody of Edgar Wright's caliber who knows a lot about film and is a student of film in the way Quentin Tarantino is, it's like if he's saying it's worth watching, it's probably worth watching.
And he's
not like Pauline Kael saying some bullshit period piece is worth watching. It's like this is a guy who we would see as a peer almost.
Right, exactly. Like I look at Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright likes the movies that always catch my eye when I see them, like Twitch of the Death Nerve and all those Italian and French and European hammer horror, right? He's like a guy that you feel like, for me, is a guy who I feel like I can hang out with, you know what I mean? He's a guy who could explain to me why he likes Suspiria.
Exactly. And him and I would have to have a word about Interstellar, though.
But that's the thing. But it'd be you would look forward to that conversation.
Yep.
You know what I mean? As opposed to like a guy like David Mamet, who I'm sure is a cool dude, but I don't really necessarily see myself in him.
I've heard he is not a cool dude.
Well,
but
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, allegedly.
Love Glengarry Glen Ross.
Sure, who doesn't? So, do you remember the first time this happened to you, Kev, where you watched a movie because a guy who makes movies said you should? I'm asking you to dig deep here, Kev.
I'm thinking.
For me, it was Kevin Smith when we got really into Clerks when we were in middle school, and he said I was inspired by a movie called Slacker, Richard Linklater's Slacker.
If I'm not mistaken, that was Linklater's first or second movie.
First movie,
so,
yeah. It made in Austin, Texas, just a rambling, weird kind of a thing. And I watched Slacker, and I fucking hated it.
Yeah, I didn't like it either.
And I was also 12 years old, so it's like,
exactly.
It didn't make any sense. It wasn't,
It's very of its time, I think. It's really skewing conventions of the time, but now it was kind of postmodern before postmodern was a thing, but now we're kind of already in that and know what it is, and so it's hard to see that as being a really revolutionary thing. It's like we see this shit all the time. The Duplass brothers make this movie every year.
It's true, but perhaps we would appreciate the quiet poetry of that as 30-year-old dudes, not as 12-year-olds
exactly.
when you're you're just getting over Ninja Turtles, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you kind of want that spectacle.
Slacker is going to be way too far of a leap for you.
And I feel like even though that didn't go well, I feel like that has continued. We watched Shogun Assassin. I would never have heard of Shogun Assassin if Tarantino hadn't cited it as his influence on Kill Bill.
Yeah.
So
and it directly references it in Kill Bill.
Right.
And she wants to watch a video and she wants to watch Shogun Assassin.
Right, exactly. So, it's interesting. I feel like that's an exploration of movie fandom that people, they talk about and they romanticize. And, I want to try it here for the podcast, Can we go into this thing? Only thing we know about it, we don't have the marketing campaign. We don't have the hype, of everyone's talking about it. It's a buzz. It's like a new movie, right? This is a obscure old movie that a guy that we both think is cool said is cool. So,
yep.
Cool plus cool equals cool? I don't know. Maybe.
One for me is, I believe Spielberg actually cited it. It's The Conformist, a Bernardo Bertolucci movie from 1969. It was cited as an influence on Munich, and I just found it on DVD. I blind bought it because it was cheap. I was like, whatever. I was in Little Spokane. You can't rent that at Hollywood Video.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by it. I was like, this is fucking cool. I mean, these people have cool costumes, the lighting and the camera work is brilliant, the story is really dark, and I'd never seen anything like that before. And I was like, okay, there's this whole world I don't really know about yet. These almost genre but really stylish foreign crime movies.
Interesting.
And so that's one I can remember off the top of my head. I'm sure there were others, but that's one that I very vividly remember. Just totally went in blind.
And I think that's I like how you put that, because I think people don't appreciate. I mean, I think as nerds we don't think about that. I went in this movie blind. I didn't know really what it was about.
Yeah.
I didn't know who was in it. I'm not familiar with anything about it. I'm only going in because someone recommended it to me, and I think that to us feels cool, but to people don't do that. Like
They go in blind all the time.
they go in blind to. I mean,
There's
people,
that lady at The Witch last week when we saw The Witch. Who was like, I wasn't ready for a horror movie.
but then she didn't like it. You know what I mean?
And she didn't like it because she wasn't ready for it. It's like, that's no criticism on the movie.
Also, Witch, amazing.
Great film.
But I think like Deadpool, right? People went in blind on the trailer. They're not familiar with Deadpool going into the trailer, but then the trailer sells them on the movie, and then they go to the movie, right? For us, it's like some guy casually mentions, "Oh, I really liked this movie." You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know how many people really do that. I mean, I think TV kind of gives you that level of a passive viewing experience. Like, you just flipping channels one day and you land on HBO or USA or Spike and you see like, what is Suicide Kings? What's, Garbage Pail Kids? What's this, that, the things that you discover. But that level of discovery, I think, for us, comes through fandom, and I want to exploit it.
I mean, we read a lot of interviews and we listen to podcasts, and so we hear about movies like Le Cercle Rouge and shit like that.
You form this weird one-sided relationship with the director, right, where he is telling you what to do and you do it, and you don't get to tell him back what you thought about it.
Exactly.
So, and here we go. We're going to explore that. But before we get into that, Kev, you like movies of this genre? The genre being weird rock and roll.
Yes, 100 times yes. I do like these movies because they don't give a fuck. They are crazy. They're weird. They're completely coked out. The fashion is all over the place. The music is loud. I love these kind of just weird bozo for bonkers movies.
And I think this bozo or bunker category, I think it only peers this movie has. It seems to be halfway between Rocky Horror and Scott Pilgrim.
A little bit.
And then there's Phantom of the Paradise. And then, can you think of another movie like this?
There's like Xanadu if you want to get really, really campy.
Yeah, campy rock and roll movies.
The Wicker Man is kind of almost like that. It's not rock and roll.
It's not rock and roll.
Folk music, but it's like this weird...
Oh, I guess it is, huh?
This weird, like, 70s, like, horror musical.
And I love it's not a musical in the sense... It's not a musical in the sense that people go through scene singing. It's a musical in that we just watch a lot of people, like, play a lute while dancing naked around a fucking pagan fire. Also, I love that movie. That movie is fantastic.
But I think it kind of fits in that mold. Of
right.
Just, the music kind of drives it, but it has this crazy anything goes attitude about it, and made in a time where experimentation was not only...
I see where you're going with that thought, but I don't think I agree with that, because Rocky Horror failed, this failed, The Wicker Man was an obscure movie, and Scott Pilgrim failed. People, the general public, does not like this kind of thing.
They're not good in the moment, or they're not successful in the moment, but word of mouth saves those movies.
Yes.
I've been to Rocky Horror Midnight shows 3 times.
Yeah.
Rocky Horror is the longest running movie that's played in a theater of all time. There's a theater in Munich, Germany that has played it like every week since the day it opened.
Wow.
So it has a record that will like never be beaten, basically.
So and after we watch this, let's return to, is this movie better than Rocky Horror?
Sure.
But yeah, I mean it's a genre that is truly cult.
Yep. There's some weird movie I just heard about it. It's called like Pearl or something like that. And it stars like this Israeli rock star, and it looked like it was fit right in this mold of like really crazy 70s rock and roll musical. And apparently it's a total disaster.
We'll have to check that disaster.
Yeah, I read it on Slash Film, so I'll have to seek that.
We'll put a pin in that one. Are you familiar with the writer-director Brian De Palma?
Yes, I've seen not all of his movies, a number of his films.
Mm-hmm.
I can honestly say I'm not a big fan of Brian De Palma's, actually. I think his style kind of gets in the way of a lot of his stories.
That's interesting. I mean, Brian De Palma's a guy that, your Tarantino, your Rodriguez's, your...
Everybody cites as an influence.
Yeah, exactly. And
he does do cool stuff.
Right.
There's like, the opening of Snake Eyes is like a 12-minute single take. And he does split screens and, Carrie, and he has...
split screen, famously, there's a split screen in this movie.
I believe it.
Yeah, so, I mean, I've only seen a couple of his movies. He's one of those guys that you want to be a bigger fan of. Like, he's like, I feel like the movie equivalent to, like, the Ramones, right? Where it's this thing that is a little bit left of center that everyone who is anyone knows about, and then you gotta like start absorbing it. You know what I mean? Because you're just like, I gotta fill that gap in my repertoire. But that being said, I think the movies that I've seen of his, I've seen Scarface, Mission Impossible 1, Carrie, and The Untouchables. I really like The Untouchables. I really like Carrie. Mission Impossible, it's hard to say because I saw it when it first came out. You know what I mean? That was like 96. And I do not like Scarface at all.
I don't like it either.
I find that movie to be boring and pointless.
I completely agree with you.
But the fandom around that movie is insanity.
Ridiculous. You know, you can buy a Scarface poster in Spencer's Gifts at the mall. It's
right.
It's, you know, of all the movies to come out, of all the Pacino roles, like, that's the one he's probably going to be remembered for, and I think that's just shitty. Because he's done so much better. And that movie's just not that good, you know?
It's interesting.
And I feel like he hasn't made a good movie in a long time, though.
Brian De Palma?
Yeah.
No, I mean, he's mostly retired at this point, right?
He had a movie come out within the last couple years. Passion.
Really? Oh,
with,
right.
Noomi Rapace and Rachel McAdams.
And it's like a lesbian...
kind of a les noir, if you will.
Yeah, les noir. It's exactly how I would want to describe that.
I remember seeing The Black Dahlia in theaters and absolutely hating that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie... The directing wasn't a problem. It was just the mess of a script that it had.
And then, like, in the last 20 years, it's like, you know, Mission to Mars, Femme Fatale, Black Dahlia, Redacted, and Passion. It's not... And it's like, it's tough. It's like, are those bad movies? And so many people would say yes. Or are they just not as good as what we know that he can do?
Yeah.
It's hard to say, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's just an interesting figure.
Oh, I also thought Body Double was painfully boring.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you brought up some bad memories with Body Double.
Why?
Because I remember watching that and thinking the same thing, but forgetting about it and then remembering how terrible it was. But yeah, he's from that same school like Martin Scorsese and Spielberg and Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola. Like, he's in the same vein as those guys. And like we said, he has interesting stylistic flourishes that are cool, but I feel like he's never made that top to bottom really good movie.
Well, let's see it. We'll see if Phantom of the Paradise
Hopefully
is...
it's Phantom of the Paradise.
Because Edgar Wright says it is, man. So, you know, and I want to believe.
Edgar Wright, he hasn't failed me yet.
And the thing is, I want this... I mean, you know, maybe this is not objective or how we should be doing this, but I want this movie to be good. I like the idea of a rock and roll Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool as hell. And then, like, that trailer has... That mask is cool. Mm-hmm. Like I said, everything... It looks like a vacuum exploded. Everything looks dusty and colorful. It's just... I want to see it.
Yeah.
It looks completely amazing.
And again, I have to say, that trailer... The way that... As a trailer, it looks terrible. But if you were to dissect the pieces of it, you're like, the Phantom looks cool. It's cool they're playing rock and roll music. It's cool, you know, like the villain looks like a real a-hole. Like, there's you can extrapolate. Maybe this is a bad trailer for a good movie. Some of the shots are really cool. There's a shot in the trailer that I saw where the Phantom's running down a hallway. And I'm like, this is just a guy running down a hallway, but it looks amazing.
Yep.
So...
Also, the 70s had that one trailer voice dude who I think is the greatest trailer voice dude of all time.
The Grindhouse kind of trailer?
Yeah, he did the Warriors, he did Jason and the Argonauts, but he's like, you know, these are the Warriors, and Jason and the Argonauts. Like, that guy kicked ass. I want to know his name sometime.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 70s trailers.
You know,
they're wild.
we can talk all we want about the trailers, but let's just go watch the movie, and let's fucking get into this thing.
All right, here we go.
And we're back.
We're back.
To start, Kev, where, when, and how did you see the movie?
I watched Phantom of the Paradise on Amazon Prime last Tuesday, or Tuesday of this week, after I got home from work.
I stayed home from work as I was sick, so I watched it, also Amazon Prime, played that sweet...
It's about the only way you can get it.
$3.99 HD rental.
Yep.
Not the best situation to watch a movie when your head hurts, but...
See, I like watching it when I'm sick, though.
Interesting.
I feel like it kind of takes your mind off of how sick you are. That's me.
That's true, but I feel like it's
I also play video games when I'm sick. That really, like, gets you focused.
I should have done that.
Stuffy.
I tried playing I have that Magic the Gathering game on the
didn't
phone.
Play, like, Uncharted.
Yeah, well, the thing is like, because that game requires a lot of, like, heavy thinking of, like, strategy, it gives you a headache.
You just need something that you're just mowing people down.
So let's roll straight into Phantom of the Paradise. What were your initial thoughts?
So I want to give one shout out real quick. The whole time, every time Swan was talking, I was like, who? I've heard that voice before.
Uh-huh.
He was Penguin on Batman the Animated Series.
Oh!
The old Fox show, which is a fucking great show. I have all the DVDs of it.
Yeah, it's a really good show.
I've watched it all. It stands up so well. But
Yeah.
he was Penguin on that series. Along with a ton of other voice work, too. So, good on him. Paul Williams is his name.
Yeah, he's a musician, too, right?
He's a songwriter. He does some singing, but he wrote a lot of... He has a big Barry Manilow song. I can't, off the top of my head, think of what it is. But yeah, he wrote a lot of songs for other people, as well did his own stuff. So, multi-talented dude, Paul Williams.
Still alive today.
Still alive. Still kicking.
Yeah.
Still doing voice work. I think he was on Adventure Time recently.
Killing it. But, okay, so that was
So, yeah,
that's your thoughts on Paul Williams, but thoughts on Phantom of the Paradise.
About what I expected, in that it is a completely unhinged 70s rock opera.
Right.
And I did enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Was it as crazy as it could have been? Maybe not quite. But I did enjoy the story. Did like just how it completely was its own thing. It didn't just feel like a remake of Phantom of the Opera. You know, it's like, it uses that as kind of the bones of the story, but it really does tell its own thing. And I think it might be a bit of a parallel to the actual music business in the 70s, just like a really amped up version of it.
And we'll get into that in a minute, and I feel like I agree with mostly everything you just said, and especially when it comes to the 70s stuff, I feel like maybe there's some references that we don't understand because we don't live in the 70s.
Yeah.
Where it's like, like how there's like the Beach Bums and they're like the Beach Boy rip-off band, and it's like, are they supposed to be the Beach Boys, or are they supposed to be a Beach Boys rip-off band that we've all forgotten about those bands because, you know what I mean? They don't exist.
Because you only remember the Beach Boys.
Like recently I watched the movie Step Up 2, and the movie came out in the early 2000s, and like they're playing like early 2000s rock.
Yep.
Like Drowning Pool and like it's like
a lot of Corn, a lot of
it's post Corn. It's like it's like Puddle of Mud,
Non-Point, Puddle of Mud.
Yeah,
those guys.
But translation, music that you recognize the sound of but completely have forgotten.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we have moved on from that.
Yep.
Nothing, all that new metal, none of it stuck around except for Slipknot,
Yep, exactly.
Anyways, so we'll get to more of that later. Overall, I think the movie, it's a bizarre movie that is totally its own thing.
Yep.
It's not the craziest movie you've ever seen.
Which I feel like it was hyped up as.
Right.
Like, everything I read about, everything you do, it's like, this movie is just fucking bonkers.
But I would say if you found this movie, if this movie was just playing on TV, you'd be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
If I was like 13 and saw this, like,
right.
On Bravo, back when Bravo, like, showed movies, it's like...
Which, this would be like, this is like a Bravo kind of a movie.
Yeah, you go, what is going on? What?
Yeah.
This guy's named Beef.
Yeah. Beef comes in this movie and Beef comes out. But it's stylized. It plays up its stylized stuff. And the thing is that it's not crazy. It's just hyper stylized.
Yes.
And like, I think to its benefit, I think the first half of the movie is good, but I think the second half of the movie is actually great.
Yeah.
I
would agree. It builds as it goes.
Right.
With a huge color palette and style choicing.
Right.
Lots of different camera moves, lots of different editing techniques. There's like surreal stuff, grounded stuff. And it's just, this movie doesn't limit its toolbox. It uses everything.
And I mean, I was kind of thinking when I was watching the movie, I was thinking about the Phantom of the Opera movie with that came out a couple years ago. I think Gerard Butler's with it.
Gerard Butler was the Phantom.
And that movie is really boring and long.
Yes.
And I feel like the story of the Phantom of the Opera is always like presented in this way of like, you come in the middle of the story, right? And then you flash back to like, oh, so this is what happened to the Phantom, and he's been terrorizing the opera for a long time. Yep. I think this movie really takes the bones of that structure, of what you're talking about, and really makes something that's like, makes more sense out of it. Like, it's like, he works for Swan, that's why he's at the paradise. But then when things don't go his way, then he starts to rebel. But Swan is such a like a sociopath that he doesn't really care that anyone's getting murdered.
Yeah.
It's like he kind of finds a way to work with that. He's like, yeah, you killed some of my guys, but I tried to kill you, so I guess we're even.
Ink means nothing to me. That was a great line.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
he makes people sign contracts in blood.
Oh, dude. Okay, well, just that moment is so great where he makes him sign the contract in blood, and then he cuts his own finger, and then he has a stamp.
Yep.
And he puts his blood on the stamp and then stamps it.
Swan is he's a great character.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's an amalgamation of like a million record executives from that day.
Right, and that one guy who killed a girl, he's a producer. He like worked with like the Ramones and stuff. Phil Spector.
Yeah.
He's a real Phil Spector kind of type.
Oh yeah, he's totally. Yeah, now you say that, he's totally based on Phil Spector.
But the thing is that like Phil Spector's been in jail since we were children, so it's like
2003.
Oh, 2003? I thought it was like 98 or 99.
No. He's been around a long time, but yeah, he finally got acquitted for murder in like 2003.
Not acquitted, convicted.
Oh yeah, convicted.
Yeah.
Murder, so
Yeah. Fucking Phil Spector.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the characters, because there's three. Listen, there's a lot of characters in the movie. Beef, a lot of. But there's three.
Does Beef have the greatest movie entrance of all time? Coffin opens and then just
Yeah. So good. Also, just the beginning of the movie, Rod Serling's intro.
Yes.
The last thing Rod Serling ever did professionally, and so good.
Yep.
I
mean, it gets you right into it.
The man who wrote the music, the woman who sang it, and the monster who stole it. It's just like, yes. So let's get into the man who let's get it first. The monster who stole it, Swan. Right. Introduction to Swan, maybe the best villainous introduction I've ever seen, where he walks in this room while all these girls are like trying to get an orgy going or whatever, and he takes one look at the main character and he says, and I quote, "Get that fag out of here." Referring to Leech.
Yep.
Such a that's amazing. Like,
I mean, the first time we see Swan, he's a white glove, and we don't even know.
Yeah,
what
he's
he
like Dr. Claw.
Exactly.
Right. But the first time we see his full on, he walks in and they're like, oh, Swan. He's just like, get this fag out of here. Oh, also the Death logo, the Death Records logo, amazing.
So there's an interesting
factoid here, right?
Yes. It was originally Swan Song Records.
Right.
But that was Led Zeppelin's record label at the time. They were going to sue the production. And so there's some really shoddy superimposing in this movie over certain parts.
See, I read that too, and then I didn't notice it.
It's on the podium at the airport when they introduce Beef. It is bad.
Is it?
Oh, it's like I just happened to see it, but like when they do that zoom in, it's totally like not matched up. And also it's like moving around as the camera's moving.
Yeah, so, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you didn't notice it, but it was like very distracting to me. So, but an interesting, Swan Song's a good name, but yeah, that was Led Zeppelin, their own record label after they left Atlantic Records.
Right.
So
I just love that. Just Death Records is a dead bird.
It's a dead bird. That's great.
It's great. Yeah, so Swan is a great villain, like great, and like with the things that as we learn more about him, you know what I mean? Like it's like he's a secretive character, and then we learn like he has a deal with the devil, and I just feel like for a villain in a movie like this, they perfectly do it where he's crazy. He's not like Billy Zane in Titanic, where he's just like villainous for the sake of villainous. Yeah. He's just like, what's the word? He's just like, like this apathetic villain, An
apathetic megalomaniac.
Yeah.
With a really cool circular desk.
Oh my god, that gold record circular desk. So good.
With, where apparitions of musicians just appear in front of him.
Right.
Like that's...
And hyper stylized.
If that's not the office of Satan, I don't know what is.
Right.
Or,
and also, I want to work in that office.
Record executive Satan. Yeah, right. That lobby is cool.
So then there's the Phantom, right? What'd you make of the Phantom's outfit?
I think it totally fits the style of the movie.
Right.
And I like his modulated voice.
Yes, love that modulated voice.
Modulated voice is cool, because I'm one of the few people that thinks when auto-tune is used correctly, it's cool. If you use it to like correct your singing, you suck. Fuck you. But if you use it in a way in the song that's stylized, it can be really cool.
Well, I think, just to briefly go down this road, I agree with you. Also, I feel like we're not the kind of people who are listening to the radio a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like when you hear a T-Pain song and he's using the auto-tune, it's like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to listen to this song 8,000 times, so it's never going to really grate on me. You know what I mean? Like... Yep. Because it's like, oh, cool, T-Pain, that's what he does, and various other guys.
I still make mix CDs. I don't listen to the radio.
Exactly. I'm on my, I just go off my phone, right? Because I have the iPod.
You got one of them fancy cars.
Well, yeah, a car made after 2010.
Yep.
So I think the audience, a lot of audiences, once they recognize patterns, they start to get critical of them.
Yep.
And I feel like that's a weird thing. It's a weird negativity, right? Where it's like, like again, I'm watching Step Up 2 with some friends, and it's like, that's the love interest. Like, yeah, that's the meet cute. Like, you know what this is? It's a fucking dance movie. You know what I mean? Like, what do you expect? Like that everyone's gonna die at the end? This movie.
And to tie it back to Phantom of the Paradise, isn't that kind of what the Phantom's music is railing against? It's like everybody's listening to these boring, like, sock hop bands.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this guy has the brilliant song, and Swan sees it and puts him in a record press, allegedly.
Well, he got to put himself in the record press.
Yeah, he fell in the record press.
Right.
But yeah, his... that costume's cool. It totally fits the whole aesthetic of this thing. Lots of hard angles... Lots of color. And
they always cheat his head to the side so his eye is super big and right in camera center or whatever. Yep. That's really cool.
And his one good eye, the other eye is blacked out.
Right.
Which, again, just that asymmetrical monster look is cool.
Right.
And he's got them silvered chompers, too.
Right.
So.
Which is weird. Like, I feel like at the end of the movie when you see him with his mask on, because then he also has, like, black eye makeup on. And then when he takes off the mask, he doesn't have the black makeup on. And it's like, what? Like, you know that we saw that, right?
That they do that in Batman movies too.
Yeah, I'm always like, that's part of the costume. You put the black makeup on and then you put the mask on.
I think Kick-Ass is the only movie to ever show the hero actually applying the black makeup on
before he puts the mask on.
Before he puts the mask on.
Yeah.
So.
And then I want to talk about Phoenix, the girl from, which is, by the way, the girl from Suspiria. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that.
Also, fun fact, she's married to Tom Rothman, who used to run Fox and is now the head of Sony.
Hey.
What a crazy career. Maybe Tom Rothman was
he might be in there somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know, but that's crazy. We don't spend a lot of time with her, right?
Yeah, we don't get to know her that well, but
and at first
she's the reason why everybody's going crazy.
Right, and at first I thought that was a weakness of the movie. It's like that's so thin. But then the more I think about it, it's kind of like it's a love at first sight thing, right? He meets her in the line to audition for Swan, and he kind of like is smitten with her right away.
He's smitten with her voice,
right? Smitten with her
like
voice.
His whole thing is like she's the only one who can perform my music,
right? But which plays in exactly because it's not her physical beauty, it's the voice, which plays in the fairy tale element of this, right? It's like he hears this voice and he's like, I'm a musical genius and that's the only person who can, it just reads like a fairy tale, right? That whole thing. So, and he doesn't we don't spend a lot of time with her, but that's the whole point is that he wants to work with her and because of Swan, he can't, you know what I mean? I feel like, there's an economy to how all of this works that I think plays into what they're trying to do with the movie.
Yeah.
And I think that a lesser mind would be like, that's a flaw with the movie, and it's actually one of the strengths of it.
Yeah, it's they use her just enough to just get the story going where it needs to go.
Right.
So.
Also, this movie is highly to its credit, it is a quotable movie. Like, there's like some really tasty lines in this movie. Like, someone's talking to Winslow, and he's like, "Tasty, Winslow, tasty," which I really loved.
My God, he doesn't look any different. That line, that was funny.
Gentlemen, I give you the future. Beef.
It's a fun movie.
It's really fun, and I think the style plays into how fun it is too. Like, you get Swan, the gold record thing. Use the gold record image with all the band they come into the light and they come out of the light.
Yep.
That imagery is just so great, and it's such a emotional. It's like I feel like a lot of movies. I mean, the majority of movies, right, are trying to give you through falseness a sense of reality, right? Like, life is not lit perfectly, but a room is lit perfectly because that's how you remember it or whatever. You know what I mean? And this movie is not really concerned with that. He's like sitting in his gigantic gold record, thinking of these bands that are under his contract, and they pop into frame and then they pop out of frame. And like, I don't know. I just thought that was really well done. You know what I mean? And like the image of the Phantom running through the hallway, such a simple thing of like a guy running full speed with a cape through a hallway and then a camera following him. And for some reason in this movie, I just thought that image to me was just like striking.
Yeah, really, with like the red walls too, and all the color. It's just lots of memorable images in this.
Really long shots. Oh, go ahead.
To go back to musicians kind of appearing out of nowhere,
right?
HBO show Vinyl is kind of doing that.
Oh, do they?
They're doing like someone will put on a Howlin' Wolf record and like an apparition of Howlin' Wolf will like appear in their house and like, you know, do it. And like that's that transformative quality really good music can have for you.
Uh-huh.
You know, Olivia Wilde's listening to the Carpenters and like Karen Carpenter is in her car seat, like you know, an actress playing Karen Carpenter, but is in the seat like singing the song. So it kind of pulls that surreal thing too, and I think to great effect.
Are you liking vinyl?
It's hold on. I like its style is cool. I think the story, Terrence Winter, I love Boardwalk Empire, but that's the story builds as the season goes. And so details that don't seem important now really pay off later and kind of tie it all together. So it's hard to judge those episodes like one at a time.
Right.
Like it's better to see the season as a whole, and I think that's what I'm hoping the season 1's gonna do. So, but I do find it enjoyable. I like it a lot.
A lot of mixed thoughts on there.
There's a lot of mixed thoughts.
Lots of mixed thoughts. Also, what'd you make of that split screen shot?
I mean, that's some good Brian De Palma work, but that is a very much a Touch of Evil reference, Orson Welles' movie.
Right.
With the bomb in the trunk and just not knowing when that bomb's going to go off. So
I found myself really loving that shot, but at the same time being frustrated by it because, like, when I watch a movie, I want to be a captivated audience. I want to be really engaged. And when there's two things going on simultaneously, you have to bounce back and forth between the two. And it's not like, hey, like, look at this one and then not this one, right? The movie is presenting you with two images, and you have to make the decision which one you want to go to.
Yeah.
So I felt frustrated not knowing where to look.
Yeah.
And then I thought about like watching it twice, but then I never did. And but I really liked it. I thought that it was done really well.
yeah, it's cool. And then it's always good. I like that it's kind of chaotic because they both kind of end up in an interesting place at the end. One is the car blowing up, and the other is, I believe it ends on the Phantom watching it. And
right.
That's kind of one of our first looks at the Phantom. So
right.
I think that's cool.
Right.
So, two very different perspectives.
You get the glimpse of the Phantom, and then the car blows up, and it's like...
And then you know it was him that did it.
Right. I want to talk really quick. I want to talk about the bands and the music, but I want to talk about them in that order. The bands and the music. First of all, a lot of great band names here. You got the Juicy Fruits.
Juicy Fruits.
You got Beef. You got the Beach Bums.
Yep.
And you got the Undeads, which is kind of like a little silly, like Undeads, but they're great. They have all their instruments are like weapons and like cutting up dummies on the stage.
Yep.
Amazing.
Alice Cooper style, you know?
So good.
And yeah, I mean, Beef's evolution through the whole thing is funny. Like, he's this, like, proto-glam rocker, but then he's also kind of a David Bowie figure.
Right, a little transgender thing going on.
He's just a crazy character. I don't know who played him, but just a total wackadoo.
And then, his stage persona is so, like, masculine, but then he's kind of, like, effeminate.
Right, he's very effeminate.
You know,
when he gets the plunger in the face and he's terrified.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, about the last thing you think was going to show up in that scene, when Phantom goes to intimidate him in the shower.
You think he's going to get he's going to get psycho.
Yeah, he, like, slices the knife with the current, and then a plunger shows up. It's like, that's the moment you either love this movie or hate this movie.
Right.
And that's where I loved it.
Yeah, I did too, really. I did. And, I mean, like, there's a one musician guy, I think it's the first band that's playing, he wraps his arm with the mic cord and then injects himself with the mic, and it's just like, that's such a great image.
That's cool, and you can only get away with that in the 70s.
Yeah. Before, when drugs were super cool and no one learned any lessons yet.
Especially heroin. Heroin was the cool people's drug.
Do you have any sweet band names for bands you want to start but never will?
The Hobarts is a name I've always wanted.
The Hobarts, huh?
Yeah. Inspired by the mixer at the pizza place I worked at. The Hobart. The dough mixer. It's like an industrial-sized dough mixer. And yeah, I was like, the Hobarts, that's a name that could, like, conquer the world. I think.
The Hobarts?
The Hobarts. In a way.
Interesting.
Could be a Beatle.
What's the sound?
Heavy rock in a suit. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wear suits. That band needs suits.
I do like the idea of heavy rock and suits.
Yeah.
I think
there's not enough bands doing it.
I like that too. I also, at this stage in the game, why hasn't anyone made not like a Beatles ripoff or cover band, but like a band that sounds like the Beatles?
I mean, Panic at the Disco kind of tried it once on their Pretty Odd album. The album's called Pretty Odd.
Uh-huh.
And like they tried to do that like Sgt. Pepper type sound where you got harps and you got lots of different vocal harmonies, and every song is like a totally different tapestry of music.
No, I'm talking about like I Want to Hold Your Hands Beatles.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like that fun like 60s kind of rock.
Yeah, it's everybody tries to do kind of the 70s rock, which had a harder edge, which I'm fine with. But yeah, nobody really
But
does.
everyone loves such pussy music. You know what I mean?
I know.
People love just stupid love songs. I feel like
Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift.
I'm saying I just feel like the world is perfectly set up right now for someone just to play a guitar, like just strumming it like a little
sing some vocal harmonies.
Yeah,
learn your harmonies.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Chords. And write a damn song.
And you put it out in mono, like on a cassette, and everyone would love it. You know what I'm saying? My band name's Lucha in the Libre, ska band.
Oh yes.
MLIS, Masters of Libraries Information and Science, which would be my metal band in suits. And then EO's de Motorhead, which is Motorhead cover band.
All right, there you go.
Good
names.
You know, but what did you think about the music in this?
Oh, the music's great.
It is really good.
It's just alive. You know, even like the Juicy Fruits are supposed to be kind of like, oh, this is just a whatever doo-wop band. Their songs are pretty damn cool.
Right.
and this was there was some movie I can't remember off the top of my head where it's like they present this musical genius, but it's like his songs suck. You know?
Oh yeah.
But this movie, it's like, no, those songs are really cool. So you legitimately believe that the Phantom is a musical genius.
Right.
You know, in his green shag carpet room. Which, that's another cool set. His studio that he's locked in.
Which apparently was a real studio.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That is there's some cigarette smoke in that shag carpet.
Oh, yeah. There's lots of things in that shag carpet.
There's it. Oh, boy. But yeah, it's like his songs were legitimately, like, brilliant songs.
Right.
So.
Right.
I want the soundtrack of this movie better be available.
It is.
Excellent.
And I just like the I mean, it's not the kind of rock and roll that I think that you and I like, which is a little bit louder and a little bit faster. You know what I mean?
I mean, I like lots of
I'm saying, yeah, I know. But I'm saying, like, if you were to say, like, what's your favorite kind of rock and roll? For me, it'd be, like, a little bit faster than this and a little bit louder than this. Kind of stuff that happened at the end of the 70s and into the 80s, you know what I mean?
Like your Thin Lizzy and Motorhead.
You know, like...
Of course, Motorhead.
I like a little punk in my rock and roll.
Right.
You know what I mean? I like a little bit of that speed.
That's
you
cool.
know?
It's gotta be fast and loud and make you want to throw things.
But that's okay. But this, I do think that this music is really good. You know what I mean?
Totally. We know who wrote the songs for it?
Oh, your boy, Finley.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. fucking amazing, right?
That's great.
Yeah. It was good stuff. What'd you make of the ending? So we should say, it's revealed that Swan had, so the Phantom, in a great scene that shocked the fuck out of me, the Phantom is watching Swan get it on with his girlfriend Phoenix, or his love interest Phoenix, and he stabs himself, but he's not dead, and Swan, who's been watching the Phantom stab himself, comes up to the roof and is like, come on, you signed a contract with me, right? And there's a great contract scene where, he
kind of pulls the contract out of nowhere, and that's what I liked about it.
He pulls his fat contract out of nowhere, and the Phantom's asking what all these words mean, and it's like, basically it's like, you're selling his soul to but he's kind of...
It's very vague about it.
Right.
He's like, I don't remember the exact phrase, but Paul Williams says, "Oh, that's to protect you."
Yeah.
You
He's
know?
like, what do you
need
mean?
a lawyer to look at that.
What do you mean all works, music or otherwise? Like, oh, that's just to protect you from, your music, whatever, not being published or whatever. But it's like, you could clearly tell it's like, basically everything you do from now on your whole life is going to be owned by me. So then...
And then it raises the stakes where he's like, oh, there's a clause in that contract. If I die, you're done. Basically, like my death, Swan's death, it will, like, terminate your contract.
But that's the only thing that can terminate your contract.
Only thing.
So the Phantom wants to die because he's just trying to commit suicide, which shocked me. And so then the Phantom stabs Swan, and Swan's like, no. I'm under contract with someone else. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So then you realize that these contracts, like, bind people in a supernatural way. And then you find out that Swan made a deal with the devil, who's going to kill himself because he didn't want to grow old. The devil comes to him and says, I can give you eternal youth so long as the tape that you're recording your suicide with survives. Which, by the way, it's a 1-inch tape, so not forward thinking at all. But he was like, so basically Swan So you have to destroy the tape, then you can kill Swan, and then the Phantom will die, which is what happens in the end of the movie. The Phantom destroys the tape, kills Swan, and then ensures his own death. And while this Phantom is dying on stage, in agony, everyone is like kind of partying around him.
Yep.
And then Phoenix kind of sees that it's Leech, because she didn't know that, and then kind of embraces him, and then he dies, and everyone's kind of having a great time at the paradise.
Yeah, I mean to me it plays into a theme like David Bowie talked about. He talked about figuratively killing Ziggy Stardust, and that it was the people that killed Ziggy Stardust. So it's that idea of like the fans were so ravenous that they were killing the things they loved the most. And like in this one, it's literally doing that. So
right.
That's a really interesting look at the '70s music scene and how it was going.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's like just such a literal death of everybody around you because they are so great. It's cool.
And so playing into this, right, off of what you just said, what do you think this movie's really about?
That's a good question.
I'll give you my thoughts, and maybe it'll you come off on that. So I feel like it's about fame and its relation to greed, right? Because there's a great scene where the Phantom steals Phoenix away from Swan, and they're on the rooftop, and this is right after Beef has been killed. Also, Beef's death, amazing.
A little neon lightning.
Yeah. And Phoenix says, "I'll give the people what they want," and the Phantom says, "They want more than you could ever give them." And then Phoenix says, I'll give them that and more. Right? So It's like, I'll kill myself for fame, right? And it's like, you'll destroy yourself for that. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people, especially now that we're a little bit older, a lot of people come into, you hear a lot of people in LA and also just in life, anyone who wants to work in like entertainment, anyone who wants to work in any field, right? They're like, I want to work in this field. But you only want to work in that field because you know the end result. You don't know how it actually works, right? If you want to make airplanes or you want to make cars, you don't really understand how making the economy of making a car works, right? It's like, if you want to be a pro wrestler, you don't understand how the economy of being a pro wrestler works, right? It's like...
If you want to play football, all you think about is the touchdown, not all the reps you had to do to get that touchdown.
And also, if you want to play football, you don't understand, like hey, if people are saying, this is the guy, that means that he's the guy. Because they're saying it. It doesn't matter if it's true or not, right? Yep. You look at Colin Kaepernick, right? It's like, he wasn't the guy. Fucking the coach of the 49ers...
Jim Harbaugh.
Says he is the guy. He becomes the guy. Harbaugh leaves. He's no longer the guy.
Yep.
Right? And you have to fit into that ecosystem.
Yep. Yeah, it's more than just playing ball. It's
right.
Politics.
And everything is more than playing ball.
There's politics everywhere you go.
Right. So you meet people who move to LA and they're like, "Oh, I want to be a writer, or I want to be a director, I want to be these things." And that's fine. And listen, there's a point in your life where you're like, "Who am I to succeed?" And you are we build up people as these legends, but they're not, right? Steven Spielberg is just a guy. And at one point, he was a guy that no one believed in, and then then he proves himself, and then it starts to snowball. So anyone can succeed, but then you see people come, and they're like, "Well, I want to be a writer, but I don't really write. I have ideas. Someone else needs to write." And it's like, no. The writing is the work. The idea is the idea.
Yep.
The work is the writing, right? Like, we had this idea for a podcast. Like, that's an idea. Fucking recording this every week, editing this every week, coming up with ideas, writing this. That's the work.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The idea is the idea,
and it's the work you gotta care about.
Right.
If you don't do the work, you'll either never finish your idea, or your idea is just gonna suck.
Right. So Phoenix comes into this thing, and she's like, she doesn't want to like. They kind of want to fuck her. Like, they don't really want her to be like a singer. They just want to like bring her in audition to have sex with her. She's like, I don't want to be a singer. I'll do anything but that, right? But she will do anything but that. Like, she kind of gets caught up in Swan's like sphere of influence.
Yeah.
To succeed, you have to be willing to do whatever's necessary. But there's a negative side to that too. We glamorize, like, oh yeah, like Steven Spielberg would sneak onto the Universal lot and meet with his friends and look at editing sessions and blah blah blah. And we glamorize, like, oh, he risked getting caught. But it's like, there's another version of that story where Steven Spielberg gets caught and he gets banned from the Universal lot for life.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a dark side to doing whatever it takes.
Exactly. I mean,
and people like Swan prey on that, right? Where it's like, oh, you do whatever it takes, give me your soul.
Yep.
And he's willing to sacrifice her to get more attention on the paradise.
And yeah, it's what all that is true. I also think there's the fame and commerce view and how those are usually not at odds with each other. Where fame and genius, it's Finley's not going to sell records, basically. Right. Like he's
a nerd.
He's a nebbish looking guy, but he's a brilliant songwriter. And like on whatever comment you want to make on humanity or what we do, he's not going to sell records. He's not going to make money. And in the end, at some point, you got to make some money. And yeah, like Swan is the ultimate predator of people like that. And will do anything to get the genius, but doesn't care about the man, before the mask or after the mask.
Right.
Basically.
Right. Which is personified every time he steals Leech's song, Leech turns into Phantom, he steals the Phantom song, tries to brick him into a room, and the Phantom escapes. He just is a habitual, he's a thief. You know what I mean? He will always take from people, and that's kind of the way the world works.
His name should have been Leech.
Well,
but maybe that'd be too on the nose.
Too on the nose. Also, Swan it's a cool.
Swan's a cool name.
It's a cool name.
This is our second movie with a Swan protagonist.
Who was the other one?
The Warriors.
Right. That's fine. I was actually thinking that when I was watching the movie, like, oh yeah, the Warriors.
Yep.
I also thought there was an interesting thing with Swan when he sells his soul to the devil. The devil's like, sign this contract in blood. And Swan, he comments, he's like, I was going to use this straight razor to kill myself, and now I'm using it to sell my soul. And the devil has an interesting commentary where he's like, if you killed yourself, your soul would be damned to hell anyway, so you might as well sign the contract and at least have fun.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's an interesting take on the loophole in our concepts of religion, right? Where it's like, if you are the outsider, why not? You're already fucked.
Yeah, if we're all predetermined to be in heaven or hell, as like Baptist religion says, then who gives a shit?
Right. Why not be bad?
Just go crazy.
Right. If there's no redemption, why not be bad?
Exactly.
Interesting. The movie doesn't really go deep into that, but I thought that just throwing it out there, it's a very interesting, like, oh yeah, that is how religion works, supposedly, right?
Pretty much. Yeah, we're all supposedly predispositioned to be damned or saved.
Yep. First half, talk about how Edgar Wright thinks this is a better movie than Rocky Horror. Do you think this is a better movie than Rocky Horror?
Is it a better movie overall? Yes. Is Rocky Horror probably more fun at a midnight show? It is. But this movie's never going to inspire the kind of cult following that Rocky Horror has.
Why do you think that is?
This movie's way too idiosyncratic for that. But, Rocky Horror, I don't know how anybody came up with that shit through the internet in the days before the internet of like, oh, you throw toast in this scene and rice in this scene and you learn all the songs and you yell this here and this here. I don't know how people figure that out, but it's obviously resonating with a very large swath of people.
Right.
Because every Saturday night showing of that is sold out. But yeah, I think it's weird in the way like a high school goth kid is weird. It's like, oh, this is quirky.
Rocky Horror or this movie?
Rocky Horror. It's like a way that a lot more people can relate to. This movie is weird, as we've been talking about, in a much more critical, dark, scarier way, where it's taking a lot of literal dark truths and putting them in kind of this fantasy setting.
Right.
Whereas Rocky Horror, it's sex and rock and roll, and there's death in it, but it's not. It's almost played for laughs. It's not really tragic.
Right. I also think that the songs in Rocky Horror are easier to sing along to.
Yeah, the songs are way catchier. Whereas Phantom in Phantom of the Paradise is clearly like a musical genius. And you realize that if you've listened to a lot of music, like those songs are brilliant. But yeah, Rocky Horror, it's the Time Warp is like the catchiest song you'll ever hear.
Right.
And you'll want to do the Time Warp, and you'll want to do And Touch Me that Susan Sarandon does.
Right.
And Meatloaf shows up, and the Meatloaf sings. It's way more accessible. And this is coming from somebody who's been to 3 Rocky Horror midnight shows and had a blast at every time. So I'm not digging on Rocky Horror. But yeah, this is way more of this is Rocky Horror's like heroin-doing cousin, Phantom of the Paradise.
I do think that there is a world where this does have a midnight presence as well.
it better. Jesus.
But it doesn't. I mean, not like Rocky Horror. You know what I mean? And I just feel like...
But I'll say this, too. I will only go see Rocky Horror at a midnight show. I will never just sit down and watch Rocky Horror.
Right.
But I would go to a midnight show of this, and I would just sit down and watch it.
Right.
So, to me, that's another different dichotomy between the two.
Right. All right.
Well, yeah, if you actually just sit and watch Rocky Horror, that movie sucks. But in the context of like everybody celebrating it,
right.
it gets this extra level to it that makes it really fun.
Right.
Yeah, you don't sit and watch it. It's kind of a dull movie, actually.
It's just interesting is how can a movie that's not as good have this cult and culture around it, whereas a movie that seems to be a bit better, but in the same vein conceptually, doesn't work. I gotta go to Rocky Horror at midnight and see why.
You should experience it one time. Everybody who's listening to this, go to a Rocky Horror midnight one time. Right. It is fun. And do not tell the people walking around if it's your first time or not, because you will get the virgin ritual.
Which is?
They go, "You're a virgin!" And then they like scrape a V into your head with lipstick. Weird. Just tell them, "Oh yeah, I've done this before."
Yeah. Nitpicks for this movie? Any nitpicks you got?
No real nitpicks. Pacing's a little wonky, but that was about it.
Right.
So.
Can't mash your soul into a 1-inch reel. You never make it past the
1-inch reels. Yeah, you're toast.
Right, but I don't know if that's a conscious joke or if it's just the thing that they were doing. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Any awesome things you want to point out? The movie opens with the old Fox logo. That's like a cartoon kind of looking thing.
Yeah,
like that. Cool. And I'll just say that 70s bikinis. So good.
So much better than 80s bikinis, as we talked on Thrashing.
That is a fact.
I like when he gets caught, and then it's like the hard cut, and he's just right in jail, and it's like Sing Sing, and like Finley just goes to jail like immediately.
Right. Well,
that's just such a funny cut.
And I like that too, and I like how the movie just moves. Right.
Oh yeah.
We don't spend. There's some scenes that are a little bit longer, but as soon as we're out of that scene, we're fucking out of it and we're moving. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't linger. Swan's like talent scout, Toady. Got some great cowboy boots on.
He does.
Yep. Shout out to cowboy boots.
So Toady is just like, I picked this life, but I regret it.
Also, when you first see Swan, I was like, he kind of looks like Barry Gibb and Truman Capote had a baby. It's just an interesting look,
right? So,
yeah. With a dash of Phil Spector,
sprinkled on top.
Yep. So we talked about this movie was inspired because you said Edgar Wright wanted to do it. You can definitely see some Scott Pilgrim versus the World, or should I say Phantom of the Paradise in Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah.
Totally. Like, with the crazy music, just the huge color palette, camera moves, everything. You can tell, like, Scott Pilgrim is his Phantom of the Paradise.
Right.
Basically. So his, like, bonkers musical fever dream.
Right.
So I thought that was cool.
And the craziest part about all three of these movies is not that they exist, but that they convinced Fox and Universal to make them.
Exactly.
It's like, how,
Yeah, they have like big studio money behind these.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's 70s was an interesting time. A hell of a time for filmmaking.
And just returning to Edgar Wright, I'm glad I saw this movie. I think it does, just having his stamp of approval, I think it was good. That was good enough to get me in the door, and and it was good enough. That was my good enough marketing to sell me to watch this movie, and I did enjoy it for that. I did, and it does see how that influenced his filmmaking. How he has this dynamic, overly stylized kind of a thing that
but doesn't do it on every movie. He applies it to the movie that needs it the most, and that's Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Well, what movie do you think he doesn't do over?
I mean, they're stylized, but not in the way Scott Pilgrim is.
Sure.
It's not like Hot Fuzz has like video game references and like bright colors and CGI dragons and shit like that.
Sure.
He grounds it in whatever the movie needs, and Scott Pilgrim needs that like this is another world. That's another thing I like about Phantom of the Paradise. This wasn't just like some separate world away from everything. It was like this was reality, and in Scott Pilgrim it's the same way too. It's not like this is the dark, seedy world of like the record industry. It's like the whole world's kind of crazy like that.
Oh,
That makes
right.
sense?
Yeah. We're in a bizarro world.
Yeah. Same
completely.
Same with Scott Pilgrim. It's like
This video game bizarro world.
like Amazon packages are delivered by a girl in magic roller skates.
Right.
It's like that's just and oh yeah, they live in Toronto. It's like that's the world. And I like that it creates that this is the real world. It's not this piece of the world we live in. This is a totally self-contained world.
Right.
I thought that was cool.
No, I agree with you. So in the end, you like this movie, it doesn't work.
I do like this movie. It does work in its own crazy way. If I can ever find it, I will buy it someday.
I think so too.
I think this is a good one. This is like a conversation piece on your shelf. And to go back to Edgar Wright, I'm glad he recommended it because honestly, the name Brian De Palma would have taken me away from it.
Right.
If I probably wouldn't have sooked it out.
Sought
it out.
You wouldn't have sought it out because the idea.
I'm just, as I said in the first episode, I don't really like Brian De Palma.
Right, and the idea of Brian De Palma doing a wacky music horror comedy parody is like that's too many things.
Exactly.
That's just a big mess.
Yep.
But it's not.
But he totally made it work.
Right.
So come on, Brian De Palma, do some more wacky, bonkers comedies.
Yeah, it's over. It's over.
Film noir, give it up.
I think this movie is a bizarro masterpiece. It's a cohesive film. I do also want to own it. And it's something that I feel like when I create something, I want this to be a part of it. Like, I want to make something and I kind of want to study this movie more. Like, not necessarily tell the same story, but like, it seems like in making this movie, it's like whatever we need to do to visually tell the story, we're gonna do, right? We don't care. Oh,
never limiting themselves.
This scene, we gotta get it across there. Swan is a major record executive who has all the power in the world. So he's sitting at a desk that's made of a gigantic gold record, right? That visually imparts information.
Tells you everything you need to know about Swan.
Immediately. Which is genius.
Yep.
And I just feel like this movie, I mean, you could dismiss it very easily, but I think it does do that, right? Where it's like, nothing will stand in our way of showing you what's important. It's like, when he's in Sing Sing, it's like, they play his record on the radio, it drives him crazy, he beats up a guard and jumps out the window. That's all you need to know.
Yep.
So they just give it to you. Fuck it. You know what I mean? It doesn't need to be like, oh, he makes it. There doesn't even be a scene where he figures out how to get out. He jumps out a window.
Yep.
Can you jump out a window out of prison and escape? No. But it doesn't matter.
In the 70s, you might have been able to.
Right. But that's the whole thing about it, is that he just figures it out and does it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I just like that a lot.
And you had a key word there, cohesive. That's what separates this from a lot of quote-unquote cult movies.
Right.
I feel a lot of cult movies are very messy, especially Rocky Horror Picture Show.
And a lot of
that is a messy film.
And a lot of cult movies are your nostalgia fills in the gaps.
Yeah, exactly. But this is a start to finish completed product.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like a cohesive vision was brought to the screen.
I agree.
And yeah, it never feels like... Do we know what the budget was?
1.3 mil.
1.3 million. Like, look at what they did with that. You know, I mean, that's, 1970s money. It's not 1.3, U.S. money, but still, or U.S. money. Not 1.3 our time money, but they did a lot with not a whole lot. And that's what's impressive. And made a finished product.
Right. And it's kind of like, I think it was John Landis. I'm going to give him credit for this, but maybe it wasn't him. John Landis said, the cheapest special effect is human emotion.
Yep.
So you have the Phantom just going crazy, angry, and it's like, that feels big to you. You know what I mean? And then he smashes a tape deck and it bursts into flames and he runs down a hallway and you're like, oh, fuck! But it's like, when you think about it on the filmmaking side, it's like, a guy threw a box, they lit it on fire, he ran down a hallway, he screamed.
Yep.
But just the combination of those things makes it bigger.
It totally did.
So, yeah, I just, I don't know, man. It's crazy.
Also, if you're a fan of old 70s instruments, like some of my friends are, this is an orgy of, like, awesome 70s instruments. Like, Moog synthesizers.
Yeah.
And all the boards where they put the cables into it. Like, that is just old 70s electronic music to the max. It is awesome.
Any crazy fan theory or sequel pitch?
I don't have either. I don't really want to see a sequel to this. It's like right where it needs to be.
I mean, I guess the question is, should they remake this? And I guess
No, please don't.
the answer is no.
Remake Phantom of the Opera all you want. I don't care. I won't go see it. But
Should someone make, I guess, something like this?
I just don't want to see it.
You wouldn't want. So say Fox is like, we're gonna make a movie called Phantom of the Opera, but it's gonna be set in the future, and it's like this bizarro rock and roll post-apocalyptic Mad Max world.
But I know this day it's not gonna be like rock and roll. They're gonna pick like
EDM
synthesized
music,
pop music, and EDM. I just know they're not gonna do like
Yeah.
a cool genre.
Yeah.
They're gonna pick something stupid.
That's the one thing cool. That's so cool about Mad Max is that it's like a rock and roll wasteland future.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
Cool. That's cool as shit. All right, well, that's it for this episode. Please come back and join us on the next one. Follow us on Twitter at Speaking Cinema. We are on Stitcher, iTunes, rate, review, subscribe. This is Jibber Jabber every single Monday, or Sunday, sometimes Monday night, depending on.
It depends. We're working people here.
Oh, I'm working through some illnesses here, right? I'm trying to.
Real sick.
This episode written by Mr. Jibber Jabber, me. Music by Jeff Russell, hosted by Mr. Jibber Jabber and Kev. For me and for Kev. See you next time. I don't want to live in a world without rock and roll.